Houston is my home. I was actually born at Baptist Memorial Hospital, which is about 8 blocks from where I'm sitting right now. My first career was as a teenage evangelist. To come out of my gay closet to Frankie, my mother, and I did that. And she said, well, at least you won't grow up to be a Republican. I convinced Jimmy that we needed to upstage the prom, and so we were going to go to Cuba to join the revolution. I ran into Tennessee Williams in the gay scene in New Orleans, and he was incredibly drunk, but he was still Tennessee Williams. And so I managed to get introduced to him, and still wanted to be a journalist, and what was going on then was the war in Vietnam. And so the Village Voice paid me to go to Hanoi. 4 of us got together out at the Student Union Hall at University of Houston. It was called the Cougar Den at the time. Deborah Danberg, Larry Lee, Don Gardner, and I got together and decided we would build a non-commercial free speech radio station in Houston. So I decided that I would take up a new occupation. I became a commercial burglar. The retirement plan for that business is regrettable. Ultimately, you do get caught, and ultimately you do get sentenced. And I went to Texas prison, sentenced to 160 years. Although I could have stayed in prison forever, I decided that's really not how I wanted to spend the rest of my life, so I went to work on my case with a pencil, and in a few months I was out after 4 years, 4 months, and 17 days. And I was more afraid to get out than I had been to go to prison. I came back to Houston, and since I had been to prison and everybody knew that, it was headline stuff, nobody in the gay community wanted to have anything to do with me. So I called my own press conference, and then all of a sudden they felt upstaged, and it was at that press conference that we announced the founding of a political organization. When we announced it, it didn't exist. In the mid to late 70s, Anita Bryant was the great nemesis. She was the great homophobic lady, and she was coming to Houston. And in a 24-hour period, because the nemesis Anita Bryant was here, the words gay community changed from the part of town where the bars were, a geographic term, to a group of people with common goals and aspirations toward equality. As Anita Bryant was coming to Houston, I was in touch with Harvey Milk by a phone, who had just been elected city supervisor in San Francisco. I wouldn't actually meet Harvey until 1978. I'd already planned to hold Houston Town Meeting 1. I had the idea of a national lesbian and gay congress. He wanted to march on Washington on the 10th anniversary of the Stonewall Rebellion. And then a few months later, I turned on my television, and there was Dianne Feinstein saying Harvey Milk had been assassinated. I became general manager at KPFT in January of 1980. And I woke up one morning and I could do anything I wanted to as long as it was radio. So I decided to begin The Prison Show. When Paul Broussard got killed, the detectives told me, Mr. Hill, we're not going to solve this case. We have nothing to investigate. What I heard in their words is that we don't care enough about a dead homosexual to investigate. When I was trying to get myself out of prison and was in a courtroom waiting for a writ hearing, my lawyer leaned over and said, we're pissing up a rope. This ain't going to work. And I didn't want to hear that right then. I asked him what he meant, and he said, well, as long as they're killing people, there couldn't be anything wrong with mistreating a few. as long as we are going through the ritual sacrifice of individuals in our prison, what happens to the rest of them is immaterial. We have to do something about execution. And so Execution Watch is about just the facts. We lock up too many people for too long a time for too little reason. And that reform is going to require somebody getting up every day and working to end mass incarceration.